Hi, and welcome to the 34th Keen Minds podcast. We're covering episode 20 of season 4 of NBC's The Blacklist. It's The Debt Collector. I'm Jen, aka Takata Saiko.
And I am Tessa from Criminally Sane.
And before we get started on this episode, can I just say congratulations to the whole Blacklist team for getting renewed for season 5. We will miss the Redemption team, but we're really happy for the Blacklist team.
Yeah, we hope to see the Redemption team or most of them in the Blacklist. Really, it would be neat to have you guys once in a while.
It would
Hopefully
be hard
we'll
not
that.
to bring certain people in. I mean, with Ryan, with Tom's character back full time, it would be very difficult not to bring them in. Anyway, just kudos. We're happy. Not that we ever questioned you on season 5, but we are happy to have that as an official.
I wonder if they haven't said that that's the last season, right? That they're renewing it for a last season. We may be that we get the 6 seasons that he wanted for that.
I hope so. I'm not ready for this to end. I mean, I don't want it to go beyond its threshold, but that idea of what on earth would I do with my time kind of strikes me. I have a lot of emotional input into this fandom.
Well, 6 seasons gives us 132 blacklisters, but considering that some of the blacklists have been, have multiple numbers, like the brothers, and in reality, if we counted everybody that Red has given them, including the miscellaneous, for example, what was the guy, the guy with the morgue guy, he was like, they said they call him the one that Samar interviewed Samar. Oh my God, I'm blanking out.
I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Well, like Kirk was an add-on. Kirk was never part of the blacklist. Alexander Kirk, and he was a 2-parter there.
No, but I'm thinking the guys that have been in the blacklist but are not blacklisters per se, like have an episode name after them. If you added all of this, we'll be probably closer to 250 blacklisters.
Yeah.
So we'll fill every number.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy as long as they've got a story to tell. I am thrilled to be here. I mean, they haven't disappointed yet. They have. I had someone laughing the other day that said, Jen, how do you love every character? I said, I blame the writers. They're really good. They create very layered characters, and how can I not love them? Because we were talking about Julian Gale, and my automatic, I love you reaction to him. I said, I love him. I don't trust him, and that's still where I stand. I love Gale. I love his scenes. He's a dynamic character. I just don't trust the man.
He's hard to trust. He's
kind of crazy.
Yeah. Probably a bit more than kind of, unless it's all an act and he's just.
And that's the thing, is I don't know if it is, but we'll get to
It's a good act. It's a good act.
Yeah.
Should we lead on with Samar?
Yeah, let's start in with Samar. And once again, they left the Saram drama on the doorstep. I mean, we didn't get any Saram drama, so I loved Samar. Just keep the Saram drama on the outside, and I will continue loving Samar.
I gotta say, I don't mind the Samar drama because I think it creates, there's always these things that get us like uneasy with a certain character. It's funny, but whenever a little time has passed and we see past it, we're like, yeah, I get it. There is something there, and they're setting something up. And we may not be on board with things, but
and that's the thing, is like I get, and I think that's something that I may not come across to you, is that I don't, just because I disagree with what the characters are doing doesn't mean I don't understand it on the writing side.
Mm-hmm.
When I freak out on Tumblr, I'm usually having an emotional reaction, not a writer's reaction. But yes, let's start with Samar and her awesome interrogation. How awesome was that?
Yeah, I love seeing badass Samar.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my favorite one. I mean, she was just so matter of fact about her. It's almost so scary because she's not even she's not enjoying it. She's not disliking it. She's just like, this is what I do.
Yeah,
And
it's
you don't exist, I don't exist, and nothing that happens here exists.
she is the walking Vegas. What happens with Samar stays there.
Yep.
Except for the scars she leaves behind. No, she's fantastic, and she just delivers it so well.
Mm-hmm.
It's I 100% believe that she would be capable of making someone scream, or making them think that she would make them scream. And I think that tends to be her go-to, is that she's just so intimidating when she gets into that mode,
Mm-hmm.
that she makes them believe she'll go further than she might be willing to under different circumstances, but probably not working for the FBI. Kind of
I
like
think
with
we've
Liz last
seen
week.
her. Yeah, we've seen her do things like
She
that, highly
threw a man
questionable.
out the window in season 2, was it?
Yeah, it was her job. Um, and I find that it's interesting as we see this Amar, to go back to that episode of the Lipid Seafood Company, when we have when she is, they have her hanging, and she's not really being tortured. They just hanging in there, with their arms up, and the guy is going to torture her, and there's a look in there, and it's like, I'm good, and the guy just knows that it's gonna waste his time.
Yeah, and that was amazing. And that's just Samar. I think that is just the epitome of badass right there.
I think that among my favorite moments with Samar, it's this one, that one with the guy when he just says I'm good, and then the one with she is in 210 in Luther Braxton, when they're all hanging by the neck, and she starts praying in Arabic. I thought there were all three moments of being is she's badass, and at the same time she's doing what she needs to do in order to survive and get her team members out of there alive.
Yeah, it's not like she's a cold-hearted human being. She's just a
That's her
badass.
job.
Yeah, she's just really good at her job.
Hmm. Yeah, it was a beautiful moment that she had there.
Yeah.
Kudos to Mosan. She did a fantastic job.
And she always does.
She always looks so good doing it too.
Right? Wish I looked at that good doing it, you know?
Yeah. Because
so
aesthetics are important.
you want to go into wrestler next?
Let's go into wrestler.
Okay, so last week I said all I wanted to do was wrap a blanket around him and protect him. That feeling lingered this week. I just wanted to protect Russ, because that poor man, he is not only finding out what Liz went through, he was certainly sympathetic to her when she went through it in season 2. It wasn't like he was cold to her. He was the one there, protecting her and walking her out, and you hope talking to her after it, because Liz was in her motel room alone, and you hope that there was a few minutes of talking and discussing and such, whatever. But he was certainly sympathetic to her. It's not like he was, suck it up and get over it. But he's got a whole new level of that now. And on top of that, the whole issue with a friend from the past, where his loyalties lie. There was that great line in there of, taking one of a Reddington loyal off the board, and he goes, "I'm loyal to the task force." And I'm like, I love you, Rez. Cause it's a struggle that he's going through right now. Of what does that mean? Yes, his loyalty is to the FBI, to the task force, to his people. The moment that Samar called him and said, "Your suspension doesn't matter, Liz is in trouble," he was there. His teammates are important to him. And he will bend over backwards and do whatever he needs to protect them. And I love that about him. But that he has to be struggling with the whole Gale thing, because this was a teammate of his. Just because they don't work together all the time anymore doesn't mean they weren't friends, that they weren't close. They call each other by their first names. And so to lie to him, to feel, because the lie is his choosing. He told Liz last week he can't find out about this. So he's choosing to go that path. But it seems to be weighing on him to the point that he busted out there with, I got brainwashed and drugged, and I mean, Gale's sitting there laughing at him, and the look he had on his face was just kind of like, I just told you the truth and you made a mockery of it. Okay. You know?
Well, he did it again in the past episode when he said, well, he surrendered, and Gale is laughing hysterically. And I think that is a very interesting choice the writers are doing for him, because those are the things that Reddington used to do. And now he is doing them. You know, he's saying something blatantly like the way it is, and nobody believes him.
Yeah. And I just feel terrible for him right now, because I feel like he feels that he's on an island. He can't really work with his team because he's been suspended, so he doesn't have that support. He has Gale, who's a good friend, but he can't be honest with Gale, and so he's going through this deeply emotional trauma of being brainwashed into nearly murdering a woman who probably would deserve it, but still not that way.
Well, he would have got caught. And that was the entire point of it.
Yeah,
because it's not that he went around and got justice for her, or he took her without nobody knowing and shot her and left her in the woods. This is something that, you know, that would have been a very Red thing to do, but it wouldn't have got him caught and punished for something that sorely deserved to happen. And instead it would have got him murdered, or, you know, maybe they may have shot him, or they may have gone to jail.
Yeah, or he would have gone to prison for the rest of his life, which I think is what Kaplan was aiming for. And, you know, and Ressler's going through all this, and he doesn't really have support right now. I mean, unless he's going and getting a beer with Samara or Liz after, which I doubt he is, you know, he doesn't have that support that he needs. And then you also had... It was interesting with Cooper, because Cooper's the one that was talking about the Reddington loyalists, and he seemed to kind of be brushing things off, and that was bizarre for me with the Reddington loyalists. I wonder if that was more flippant than I took it. If it was meant more flippant.
I think that we might find out all the things that Cooper has known, either for a long time or forever, and he has kept them close to his chest. I mean, I think that everybody has an idea of Harold Cooper, like he's Mr. like you know, he's a wrestler senior, a Boy Scout, and he's not. He is very much a great character. He's intelligence, as you say. He was Navy intelligence, and you know, he's in an intelligence unit of the FBI. He's not a cop. And I think that we might find some surprises. But what I found most interesting about the wrestler arc, and I am ecstatic that they have chosen to go this route, it is that at the beginning, we saw a wrestler that was all, the black and white, and he was chasing. He was at the very beginning very much Julian Gale minus the crazy. He was about getting Reddington, and then Reddington surrenders, and his entire world is upside down. He's thrown in this thing where he's suddenly finding criminals and saving people's life and stopping a criminal that have thousands of innocents in his, like the freelancer, in his mire because all of this, getting Floriana Campo, which was, I think, a big eye opener for everybody. There is this shapeshifter that seems to be a good person, and she's in reality the head of a human trafficking huge conglomerate.
And then add the cabal in there that totally rocked his world, in that he trusted the system 100%, and the system, it didn't just fail him, it betrayed him. And so
it used him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so yeah, he's definitely had some eye-openers over the last 4 seasons in which he learned that things are not always as they appear.
Yeah. And to go further into that, now after 4 years with Reddington, trapping criminals and seeing another side of things, he is, and I love this, he is back with an element that reminds him of his past. And what he's doing with it is fascinating, because he's protecting the task force. he's protecting what they're doing. And it's not just because of the task force, it's also because of what they're doing with Reddington. Because Reddington is bringing them criminals. And do wrestlers really feel like, Gale, these people were innocents, we tried to kill them? No, I mean, I don't think he does. He's always been like, these are, remember in Vanessa Cruz when Liz was talking about the victims, and he said those are not victims, they're the perps. And so he's very clear that those people, those 86 bodies, there was not a single human being that wouldn't have gone to jail. That he's not right with the execution, that's a different thing, but he doesn't think of them as innocents.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that they have gone this route at the same time that he's understanding information is power and not choosing to say things, on the heat of the moment, or just going like blurt out things.
And even when he's not being taken seriously for it. It's fascinating. And I think that may actually be one of the reasons he's willing to do and to say what he's saying right now and just to bust out with that. Is because,
just what Dress does.
Yeah, because he knows that Gail's not going to believe him. And so, what about that meeting with Marvin Gerard?
Oh my God, I love him. I mean, the three of them were priceless.
Marvin, I will only talk to Agent Donald Wrestler Gerard.
From now on, Marvin Gerard becomes Marvelous Marvin. He was outstanding. And I love that description of wrestlers: smug, arrogant, and professional. You, friend, just seem as smug and arrogant.
You may go. That was what I loved. You may go.
It was a great scene, and trust Fisher Stevens to get those like pat on. It was beautiful, man. Absolutely delightful. And then they're sitting there and wrestler, and then it's again, I love the characters they choose to highlight the difference in the growth of a character from day one and now to Marvin Gerard. Can you imagine wrestler of 101 face to face with the Marvins of the world? He would have flipped.
Oh, I know. It's wonderful, and I love it. I love the character growth with Ress. And I've mentioned it before on the podcast. I was not Wrestler's biggest fan in season 1. It took me to the Ansel Garrick episodes for me to start to warm to him. But before that, I didn't trust him. I didn't like him. Even after that, I was like, But I love him now. He's just, I still kind of want to Gibbs style pop him on the back of the head every once in a while. But for the most part, I really love where they've gone with Russ.
Yeah, I like this that they've done with him, because at the end of his rubber banding, he's free to go and do whatever. Cooper only said what must be known eventually is better known immediately. And he goes there and he tries to protect and keep Gale from finding out about the task force. Gale, of course, does find out. Do you think he always knew, or he suspected?
I think he might have suspected. What I'm trying to figure out is when he accused Wrestler of that, if he had thought that before, or if it hit him in that moment. And, I mean, because it almost had to have crossed his mind at some point that this man is defending this woman, and she's his former partner. What if they became friends? What if he trusts her more than he's letting on? I mean, people change, and it's been 4, nearly, possibly 5 years since they've seen each other. People change.
And Wrestler is in a classified unit, of which his assignments are classified. Mm-hmm. He basically can't be found. It's suspicious. He has reasons to be suspicious of what Wrestler is doing.
Yeah. And it just, I'm not shocked he followed him. As soon as he shook his hand there, I looked at the Ruby during the episode's airing, and I said, he just bugged him. I said, he's following him. He didn't trust him. He bugged him. I said, something's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, how do you feel about Gale's crying over the bodies?
Um, I think that either the guy is crazy, but I don't think they're setting him up to be crazy, or there is something deeply personal there that we have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
One very, very deeply personal case.
Yeah. I'm more inclined to go that way too. I don't think that he could be that crazy and get done what he's gotten done, if that makes sense.
Yet they never got red. They never got red.
Well, I mean, they've explained that because I mean, people in the fandom have been asking for a long time. How does that mean Wrestler's stupid that he never got him? And I never got that impression because Wrestler's always been portrayed as a very intelligent, very clever man. Even if he's not in the intelligence community, he's still for
He follows rules, and by following rules, he becomes predictable. A cop needs to follow rules. It's not because he wants to follow rules. If you're a cop, you have to follow certain rules. And by following the rules, he became, predictable, and Red was able to stay ahead of him. And I would not be surprised if Red has somebody inside the bureau that kind of keeps him
Oh, I bet
informed.
he does. I'm sure he does. And so, I mean, especially now that he basically runs the cabal. Or at
He
least
doesn't. That segment
of the cabal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He that whole little part that was Fitch and the director's playground.
Yeah. Which is curious to know how far that stretches.
Do you think he tried to hit Red? What was that about?
I don't know. Because Red did shift last second. But I don't know if he was actually trying to hit him and he shifted, or if he was just... I saw one theory, I'm trying to remember who it was on Tumblr that made the comment, wondered if he actually is working with Kate, and if he was just trying to give her cover, cause chaos and give her cover.
Yeah, I had a similar thought, or even if he's not working with her, that he figured out who she is and figured out that an enemy of Red, the enemy of my enemy, is my friend.
And that's the thing, is I could see him forming an alliance with Kate.
I could see her waiting and picking her up in the woods.
He seems very appreciative of that. Just the way he talked about her when he said, these 86 bodies are telling one story, but the living one is telling something else. The person that delivered, and I'm not verbatim with this, but the person that delivered him, his cleaner, thinks that he's vulnerable, touchable, I think was the phrase.
Yeah.
And so I think that I don't know what story he's concocted in his head, if he thinks that she's got some, like, she's come over to the light and she's trying to turn him in without, I don't know what he's got going on in his head. I don't know Julian Gale well enough yet to even fathom what goes on in that fun little brain of his. But I do wonder if there's some sort of appreciation that he has, because she did. She knocked a case wide open for him and handed it to him on a silver platter. I mean,
well, and is the basic principle: the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody who's going against Red, he can use. And I tell you, I could see a scene in which he basically just goes to the woods and picks her up with her men. Like, come on, get in, and we'll have a little talk.
Yeah, I mean, because he had a car out there and she was walking through the woods.
Mm-hmm. That's funny how they ended up. Last episode was Red walking in the woods, and this episode is she walking through the woods.
I like that. I like that parallel.
Yeah, we haven't been doing parallels. There's been so much.
I've got one for Red.
Yeah.
I posted it right before we started recording.
I haven't seen it. And it's interesting that he's keeping everything he knows from and if you think about it, he's as good as anybody, because you have if you saw him from the beginning, or if you just started seeing them, you have no idea whether that he's letting Wrestler know that he knows. He knows now about the connection of Red, of Liz, of Wrestler, of Kate, of the whole FBI unit.
Yeah. And he chose to hide that from Wrestler. He made that conscious choice because he saw Rest there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the FBI with the vest and the whole thing. There was no
And
mistaking what it was.
he knows that phone call because he heard wrestlers into the phone call. He knows that that's where he was going.
Yep. Is an interesting development, as Red says. The fact that we don't know what he's doing or who he's with
Yeah,
makes it all the more interesting.
don't know where the loyalties lie. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Typical Blacklist fashion.
Should we go with Liz first and Red later? Because I have a lot on Red, and I know that we're gonna have a lot of Red.
Yeah, let's go into Liz. But I feel like Red and Liz and Kate all kind of flow together, and so. But yeah, let's go ahead and start with Liz. I love Liz a little more each episode. I really, as we're coming up on this, I knew this was probably the first episode in which potentially Tom could be in the episode, because I think this is the first one that there wasn't any overlapping of filming. But I was trying not to hang my hopes on it. But the response I had was, if she's gonna be abducted, why is no one calling her husband? Her very well-connected husband, and this made more sense the way it went about. I would not want to be on Liz's end of that conversation when she called him and said, "So, babe, by the way, this has been my last couple of days."
Yeah, I was very interested in the way they approach Liz this episode, because it looks like it took her a while to react to what Denbit told her, that he couldn't reach Red. And finally, I think that she's trying to reach Red.
It usually takes her a little longer on stuff like that. I mean, while we try to get onto her because she's a profiler, she should be able to step into someone else's shoes, etc., etc. It's kind of like when they say for a psychiatrist, never work with a family member, never work with a friend, keep professional, and otherwise. It's the same way I would think with profiling. When you're too close to the situation, you can't always do what you would do in any other situation. If this were just Joe Schmo that had, murdered someone off the street, she could jump in his head and figure out what made him tick. This is Red, that she's known, and I hesitate to use the word intimately because the fandom is what it is, that they've known well and have been working with very closely for the last 4 years. And I think she has trouble because so much of it is personal with him. She has a lot of trouble getting out of her own head and into his and trying to reach him. I think one of the first moments was when, a few episodes ago, I guess it was in the Dimbe Zuma episode, when she said, Can't this just be done? Can't this just be over? Can't we be even? I think that was the first time she was just like, and the roomie and I keep joking, we keep shouting at the TV as it's on, "Mom and Dad, stop fighting!" Because that's really what it feels like, and I get the impression from Liz that she really feels that way, and I'm not saying Kaplan's Katerina, I'm not saying Kaplan's her mom.
It was her nanny.
Yeah, it's these two people that she's incredibly close to, and I think that she probably has a very subconscious closeness to Kate. Otherwise, why would she trust this woman to do what she trusts her to do? But she's got that, and she just wants peace. And I think that's another thing, is that Liz, I think, is so tired. It's just been one thing after another, after another, after another. And it's the same thing she said to Red when they came back from being on the run. She goes, "Aren't you tired?" And he said, "Your last few months have been my last 25 years. I'm always tired." And she's just looking at him like, what the hell is wrong with you? How are you still on your feet?
Yeah.
I think that Liz is just emotionally exhausted. That as soon as one thing is wrapped up, something else starts, and she doesn't want to see Kate die, and she doesn't want to be put in that situation in which she has to make a choice on how she's going to react if Red kills Kate.
Well, it's going to be very hard for the situation to be resolved in any other way, because Red indicated that he was willing to let it go if it was willing to coexist, and but she said that she couldn't, which in itself is a startling admission, because basically he's saying, I kill you or you kill me, and that's the only two circumstances that can are a successful end of this thing.
Or she manages to
Learn
land
something.
she manages to land him in prison or something, in a deep dark hole somewhere. He's gone from Liz's life, I think is the key for her. And there was, I really was not expecting Kaplan to be our big bad for the latter half of 4. I really wasn't, after her conversation with the Hunter in 4A, in which she basically defended Red to him. Like, he just shot her in the face, and she was like, I get why he did it, and she basically told Tom that as well, that, she knew what was coming, she just wasn't going to make it easy on him. I think right until he pulled that trigger, she hoped he would make the right choice.
Now, let me put it this way. You're a woman who knows that you thinks that Red is hurting Liz. She gets Liz away. Red finds out. And wouldn't you try to get away? She never tried to get away. She could have got away in Cuba.
Oh, that's exactly what Marvin said. He said, I mean, and this was a little bit later than what you're noting, but he said, you survived a shot to the head. Why aren't you running? You won the frickin' lottery. And it was a very good point. She has just, and like I said, this is all kind of flowing into each other. But I think Kate, and I've said this the last couple weeks, and this episode has just continued to solidify this for me. I think that bullet, the second bullet to the head, because this is the second time she's been shot in the head. This poor woman has been shot in the head twice. I think the second one has done severe damage to her. I think it's altered. I mean, because you hear about people having strokes and altering their personalities. Just off the top of my head, I remember when I was in high school, there was a story in the news about a man that went and, shot someplace up. Took a shotgun in and just started killing people and then dropped dead because he'd had some sort of aneurysm that just freaked his brain out and totally flopped his personality and went and killed a bunch of people. I mean, that's, this was, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago or something like that in South Texas. But, I mean, I would think if something like that could happen, that a bullet to the brain would just be, it could very easily alter her personality. And her personality hasn't been altered as much as I think that her laser focus has been altered. And that moment in the middle school when she goes in to find the best route to find Liz, when she pulls a pistol on a middle schooler. Okay, yes, the kid was a cyberbully. Horrible kid. Need to be taught a lesson. Does not need to land in the morgue. You don't, as an adult, you do not pull a gun on a child. That moment to me just screamed, something is off here.
Yeah, you're out of control.
Yeah. It's, don't get me wrong, I am not at all downplaying cyberbullying and the horrible detriment that it can have on human beings, young and old. But
that's an overreaction. That's an overreaction, and that is a clear sign that that she's not all right. The other thing that was very interesting to me is they're using words, because of some of the people who have not seen Redemption. Of course, I'm not going to get this, but the words that Red and Kate used were very similar, especially when it was about Liz. Let's just put this aside. They were so similar to when Howard was pleading with Scotty. Let's save the only decent person in our family. And they keep stressing this is a family business. And for all the fans that keep saying, I hate when it's all about families. It is about families. This entire thing is about
If you
family.
hate about when it's about family, then you're watching the wrong show.
It was interesting to me to see how Kate and Red had this familiar relationship. We have the same thing going on. We got, that weird structure that we still have no idea what kind of relationship it was between Red and Katerina. There is this his stories are colliding, and it's it's almost like you're trying to make a puzzle, and you're giving pieces that are all over the board, and you tend to think, oh, this is the picture, it's a procedural. No, oh no, it's a family drama. And a lot of people are upset when they watch the part about the Keens. But I think the Keens are providing one of the fundamental elements of the story. This is about family. This is about protecting your children, and now it's your children's children,
Yeah.
and the stakes are very high for them. So I think that what might stop Kate is if she hears it from Katerina, or I sometimes even wonder if Kate knows what the real paternity is, or if she has always operated under the idea that it was one thing and is going to be proven to be something else.
Something else I would love to see, because I've been under the opinion for a long while that I want, and I do think it'll end up coming to this point, that Liz will save Red. That somehow, I mean, both physically, emotionally, I mean, he says she is his North Star. She is his way home.
Mm-hmm.
He never said she's his home. She is his way home. And I wrote a bit on this today on Tumblr. We're recording this on Friday night. And I wrote about this a little bit on Tumblr today. Just a few thoughts about. I keep going back with Red to the hideous fish conversation and to the North Star conversation. You've got this man who is spiraling and drowning and anything horrific you can talk about, to what he's suffering from in all of this. He's not just sloughing this off, It's that conversation between him and Dembe about Kate broke my heart. He doesn't love many people, but he loves Kate, or he loved Kate. And then the look on her face when she's coming towards him, I loved you. Because Kate Kaplan doesn't love many people either. We saw that in her flashback episode. She did not love many of the children that she felt pride in the children she worked with. She didn't love them. She loves Liz. She adores Liz.
I wonder if it's about Liz or if it's about Katerina.
And it might be, because I do think that whether it was a romantic love or whether it was the first friendship she'd really... Because I think that, I mean, it just, when she was talking to Annie there and she said, my friend just died. I think she was my best friend. It reminded me of someone who has a lot of social disconnect, with that light coming on and just that realization of, oh my gosh, I have this friend and I loved her. And that's the thing. And I've posted on this before in this fandom, that this fandom has a really bad habit in certain corners of thinking that love is always romantic. And The Blacklist is fantastic. It's one of the things I love the most about it, is that it explores every type of love. Every type. Romantic to familial to friendship to every aspect of love. And that was the moment with Kate, that I feel like she realized she loved somebody.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure that was not. I think that in the case of Kate with Katerina, that was a very complex relationship.
Oh, yes, very.
It was. I think that there was parts of it was familiar. Part of it was that it was the one place where her two loves, children and bodies, came together.
That's fair. That's very fair.
It was, and this is a spy, and Kate is supposed to be American, and this is a Soviet spy apparently, and she's helping her. It's and that calls Red a traitor, which is in itself bizarre because she was a traitor by helping a Soviet spy, if that is what Katerina really was. But that's what she believed Katerina was. But so it is a fascinating way they have threaded these characters, and it's funny because every character, if you think about it, has been impacted by Katerina, either by her directly,
Shocking.
or by impacted by people impacted by Katerina.
She was considered the Pinko Matahari.
Matahari.
But I imagine that goes to all aspects. I mean, yeah, she could seduce a man. She could seduce probably anybody she wanted to. But I imagine that charm, much like Tom. Tom has a lot of charm. Tom and Howard have
Red.
charm in spades. And Red.
Or Red.
Oh, God, of course Red has charm. You seen the man?
He can become anything.
Yeah.
In a way, I always keep coming back when we see when we talk about Katerina and how she was this, the Pinko Matahari, the honey trap, and she was trained to seduce and be into making people believe whatever she wanted them to believe. It always comes back to me to when Red says that Tom and him share certain characteristics, and you see Red doing undercover, and you wonder if he hasn't been always doing undercover, and if his entire life has been a long undercover.
Well, and that's you've said that before, and I've always gotten the impression when you say that you mean for someone else, and I don't necessarily agree that. I think that this is his own. I do 500% agree with you that this is an undercover project now.
Not for someone else. I think is
for him.
He's criminal. He's being a criminal is his undercover, not his name,
exactly.
Not who he is.
Yeah,
being a criminal became his undercover life.
As soon as I heard that he started that criminal empire to protect himself and to protect Liz, the main part, which also, by the way, kind of nicely parallels back to the reason that Tom went to Berlin. When Red said that he did it in part to protect himself, but mostly so that he could continue the intimate relationship with Liz. Mm-hmm. And that reminded me of the fact that he created this criminal empire to protect himself, but also to protect Liz. It's these people, there's never a straightforward answer to things. There's layers upon layers upon layers of why people do something. They're complicated, they're messy, and it gets so messy the more layers that you
We have seen two characters. Two characters have said that about Red. Ansel Garrick, everything about you is more complicated than it seems. And Red says, yeah, now you're going to tell me about how nothing is as it seems or something of the sort. So two characters who know Red from a long time has warned us about nothing is simple with Red. So just what you said. Don't trust, don't make him a teddy bear, and don't make him a criminal. He's a far more complex character.
Well, I touched on earlier, and just kind of wrap back around to it, the post that I answered today, that someone asked me if I thought he was having a breakdown, and I said I feel like he's a man on the ledge of two worlds right now. That he has the Raymond Reddington, who is the career criminal, who is Tessa's doing her happy dance over there, who's the career criminal, who has created this entire empire and has to be untouchable. He has to be untouchable. Even if he's not, he has to present that, or else, what was it that Baldus said? They're sharpening their knives. They're going to smell blood in the water. As soon as it looks like he's touchable, everybody's coming for him, and everything that he's put together is useless. And then on the other side, you have the Raymond Reddington that just wants to go home. I think he is just as tired as Liz is right now. That he wants to go home. He wants that peaceful place by the river just to watch it pass by and to read a good book and to, love a good woman and whatever input James Spader fantastic monologue here, because I can't do that. And I think he's on the verge of maybe not trying to choose, but feeling like he can't choose right now. And it's unraveling him. And that's part of what's going on right now.
And that brings me straight into one of my favorite deleted scenes.
Of course it does.
Because it's like the more we go into the show, and it's funny because I know that a lot of people are grumbly about Red. I'm ecstatic. I'm not on a roll. Everything is just coming together like ducks in a row. And I am so excited because what you just said, is exactly what I've been seeing. He told Tom, you can complete a mission and come back. What you cannot do is go on a revenge mission, come back alive, and be a father. And that is where Red is getting the transmission stuck, because for the time that he was a criminal. He didn't need to be Liz's father, whether it's a biological kid or not. It's irrelevant.
Yeah.
He told us it's irrelevant. But he wasn't a father. Now he's trying to be both. And he is the living proof of what he told Tom. You can't do both.
Him. It is shattering him. I love Red. And, I feel like I've been very hard on Red all through since 3B started. I have been incredibly hard on Red because he's been driving me nuts. I mean, you look at him and he's... one of the things I love most about Tom, and I can't remember who said this the other day, it might have been Blacklister, that made the comment and said, Tom has... I don't know, it wasn't Blacklister. I don't remember who it was, but someone made this comment, so hat tip to whoever made this. That, Tom came forward and said, this is what I've done wrong, owned what he did, apologized, changed, and then Liz forgave him. Red hasn't done that yet, and that's what drives me nuts with Red, is he's still in that control. Personally, but I'm not so angry at him that I can't see the point of what's going on. I mean, I don't think it's bad writing at all. I think it's fantastic writing. I'm gonna take Liz's side a little more than Red's, because it's just what I do. I tend to pick people that I'll take the side of more than, and I have an emotional reaction to it. And so I'm much more emotionally aligned with Liz than I am Red. Well, I guess that makes sense.
I would say that for people who are not sure that Red is a parental figure, this must be incomprehensible.
Oh, I imagine so. But they're the ones that are screaming that he's out of character, they don't understand, etc., etc.
Yeah. But because as a romantic figure doing this to somebody would be,
abusive.
Be beyond anything.
It would be so... okay, let me just point this out. If he was a romantic figure, let's just take out the father thing completely. I mean, which negates a lot of the story, but regardless, let's say he's a romantic interest. Everything he has done since 3B would be so emotionally abusive. He's making decisions for her. He's negating her ability as an adult, as an intelligent woman, to make her own decisions about her own life, about her own situations. He's not even someone that was dating her, that was with her, not the father of her child, trying to make decisions for her regarding her child, trying to make decisions for her regarding her safety, fake kidnapping her, hiring someone to fake kidnap her.
Somebody who's a sociopath.
That's an entire another thing. I'm going to get on that. Don't worry. That is another soapbox of mine. But fake kidnapping her to force her in as bait to bring a woman in so that he can come at her when he knew she was foursquare against it. And I saw someone on here, on Tumblr the other day that said, you can say whatever you want about Tom Keene, but do not tell me this was not emotionally abusive. And I said, I'm very hesitant to throw the word abuse around in this fandom because it's so misused so often. And some people that have been in that situation, I won't say all, but some people that have been in that situation get really offended by that. Very offended by that statement. And if Red were a romantic interest,
it would be totally unacceptable.
I would call it emotionally abusive. He's not. He is not. And I know, if we have Lislingtons that listen to us, I'm not saying that you have to give up your ship. Oh, God, this is such a delicate situation. I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to stomp on anybody's ship here. I'm really not. Well, I'm looking at it from canon in my point of view.
Yeah, you're a shipper. I'm not a shipper, and to me, I'm not a shipper. It makes no sense whatsoever, and the only way you can make sense of this, and when you look at it from this point of view, it makes perfect sense. The relationship
father figure doing it is not good. It is not at all good, but I'd see that as less. If a romantic interest was doing it, it would be more. It'd be a much darker situation.
Yeah, because it's a parental.
It's a misled situation as a parental figure. It is a much darker, much more dangerous situation as a romantic interest.
Yeah. As a parental figure, you can say, you can now see what the writers were saying when they said he had an unhealthy situation, an unhealthy relationship with Liz, because in a way, regardless of whether he is the biological father, which is totally irrelevant, that's the whole point of the scenes with Alexander Kirk was telling him, it doesn't matter. You thought of her as your daughter for 4 years. It doesn't matter if she's my daughter. I think of her as my daughter. It doesn't matter. Biology is totally irrelevant.
And the show is, and that's one. This hits really close to home for me because one of the things that drew me to this show was the adoption situation. So much of television, if adoption is even on the radar, it's because the parents can't have their own kids. Adoption by choice is so rare on modern TV. It drives me insane. It makes me very upset, actually. But that's one of the things that really drew me and keyed me into the Keens was the fact that they could physically have their own kids, but wanted to reach out because kids needed a good home. And I loved that about them. And while Agnes is biologically theirs and they didn't go that route, the theme of that blood doesn't automatically make family and family does not have to be tied by blood permeates through the entirety of this show, and I love it for it. It's one of my biggest draws to it, to be completely honest.
But the point that I was making with this, it's that as a father, his interest in Liz, he's manipulating Liz, he's protecting Liz. It's warped because she's an adult and he doesn't see her as such. But it is understandable as a father who never had the chance to see her grow alongside, who went from the baby steps of, okay, well, you could take in the car, okay, you're going on a date with the boy alone, to, okay, you're going to college alone, to, he didn't have that. He went from living a 4-year-old to a grown woman that is in danger, and he hasn't really understood the changes. And I think that is what it is. And he's a control freak. She is a control freak. They both have the same thing about making decisions for other people. Dom told Red that he made decisions for Katerina and for Liz. Liz made decisions for Tom.
Often.
Mm-hmm.
It was
So
one of my biggest complaints about their first marriage.
It's a trait, and they have made such a wonderful job in in creating characters in which this subtle reminders that they are father and daughter are thread through the entire thing. And a lot of the things that make no sense whatsoever, it's just because you're looking at it in the wrong direction. From my point of view, everything makes perfect sense. And even that kidnapping of Liz, yes, I find it disturbing because the guy was a loose cannon, and I love the fact that they gave us the Han story before, which was perfect because that's
an intentional. Yeah. And okay.
I do you think that he had created this situation beforehand, before the hands thing exploded, or after it exploded? I think it was before. That's why he was desperate to come back.
Might have been. My biggest issue, and I mentioned a minute ago, this was an entirely different soapbox for me to get onto. Tessa's smiling. You guys can't see her, but we've been discussing this over private discussions on Tumblr, and she knows how I very rarely make emotional bursts in full post the night of an episode. But I did the night.
She did.
I did the night of this episode because I was so angry. And my biggest issue, and I'm trying to remember her exact phrasing because Chris M23 over on Tumblr put it perfectly. It said, it doesn't matter what the hell your intentions are if they don't pan out, or something like that. I don't remember the exact quote she made, but that was the gist of it, was that no matter how good your intentions are, if they fall through and someone gets hurt, it doesn't matter how good your intentions were. Hans, he had this great plan. He was going to have these guys, these terrible people, kidnap this young man. Not a child. I keep trying to say child when I'm talking about this because it was Werner's child. It wasn't a child. It was a young man. He was in his 20s. It was made very, very clear he was not an innocent. He was already in the middle of the family business. But still, he was put in the middle of this. And he was smothered. It was a horrible accident because the people were terrible. Kind of reminds me of the I can never pronounce their name, the Pavlovich brothers from season 1. Pavlovich, thank you. Brothers from season 1, just like that's what I have pictured in my head with these people that Red hired 25 years ago, just vicious and reckless and do anything they need to get the job done. That's what I have pictured in my head. And this poor young man was smothered by accident. It was horrible. It still got Red what he wanted, but Red, being the man that he is, yes, he took advantage of it, but he was still horrified by it. Like, it's very much Red. It is, like, that situation is so the epitome of Raymond Reddington that we know. But to have that story brought to the forefront, not just to the viewers, but to Red himself, and to suddenly have this happening in which he had someone kidnap Liz like that, even if it happened before the story was brought up, it had happened. It is something that has weighed on his conscience for 25 years. Why?
To the point that he had put Nicolaus in disguise for the eventuality that he would find out.
Yes. He has prepared for this for 25 years. Why on earth would he risk that with Elizabeth Keene? That is what got me. That is what sent me into the spiral of fan frenzy that I was in Thursday night of what the bloody hell, Red? It's
In
you are smarter than this. Why?
well,
Yes,
can
go.
I never got in there. I never got in there. I understood. Um, and I always point out for this. I point out Dembe because Dembe is it's a cooler voice. He has Red best interest at heart. He had been the one when Kate was against him going in and surrendering himself. Dembe had been the one telling him consistently, you have to tell Liz the truth. He's the one who sends Liz to the apartment. He's the one who actually gives her the little bits of information that she needs. And sending her to the apartment was a huge one. And Dembe says, this is the only thing we gotta do. And when you're watching the episode and you're surprised it for the first time, you don't realize that Dembe knew what Red was doing. And he said, you have to do this. It's the way to do it. So
See, I was kind of put off by that. I'm not willing to say it was out of character because I feel like probably both Hisham and James both know Dembe's character incredibly well, as the writers do, and I know the writers know his character very well. But it very much bothered me as they were discussing all of that. And
the second time around, when you realize that they both know exactly where they are and what they're doing.
The whole thing bothered me when he was talking about Kate, and because I've seen how torn up Dembe is over that, and it's very much weighed on me and bothered me.
Well, at this point, there is realistically no way that Kate. I mean, Red was giving Kate a way out. At this point, there is very little that can be done that does not imply that either one or both of them end up dead.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, Liz was asking for Red to do something that Red knew in his heart it was impossible. And he waits what he has to do, because at that point, as Dembe says, she's gone too far to prove that you've gone too far.
And I did agree with that, yes.
So that is a very fair and poised assessment of the situation. But at the same time, what I cannot help but believe is that at that time there is no way either. That was a desperate attempt of Red, who didn't want to kill Kate. He wanted to see her in the face to see if he could recognize her still. So in that point, they could still have that where he says, okay, well, Liz is asking for this and I'm going to do what you say. But at that point, Kate, the nanny, it's doing exactly what she is telling Red he shouldn't do. He is making a decision for Liz. She's making a decision for Agnes. She's making a decision for a child that is not hers, against the express instructions of her mother. Do not love her. And those instructions were there for a reason, because Kate never had the whole story. While Red is her father or father figure. And there is obviously things that he's not telling Kate, because Kate's story doesn't make sense. It has holes. So whether it's because she had a memory extension, because the bullet did something to her brain, because with time she has remembered things different. The point that I'm making is, no, Kate is not salvable anymore. She's goner. She's doing to Liz and to Agnes exactly what she criticized Red of doing, without having the relationship that Red has.
And I feel like Kate crossed the line when she started going after the task force. Like, for me, as a fan, that's when she crossed the line. When it was just her and Red, when she was going after Red's associates, I hated it, because I love Marvin. Like, Marvin is one of my...
Is that what you did? Is that when you really gone like, okay, I can't take this?
Yeah, I turned on her when she went after Wrestler, like that. Because she set him up in something that was deeply...
That was vicious, unwarranted, and going after the person who had been the one keeping Red on the straight and narrow as much as anybody can keep him there.
The best person on the task force, probably the most in the light on the task force. That's who she goes after first.
Yeah, I always have a bit of a problem saying that Red is the best because
no, wrestler.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that Wrestler is the best because in my light there are two worlds, and Wrestler is the best in the world of the cops and the law on the black and white.
That's what I mean. Like, in the black and white world, and granted, everything works in the gray. I have a lot of leeway for a lot of things, but
in the non-intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, but just look off what Liz said in last week's episode. You know, he's a good man. He's everything America stands for. You know, that he is a great FBI agent. I mean, she's saying Wrestler's praises, and that was for a reason. That was to point out. I mean, it's obviously Liz feels that way, and she adores her partner, etc., etc. I'm not trying to downplay that at all, but it was to make a point that Kaplan went after the best of the best, the straightest laced.
The most vulnerable, too. Because exactly by being so, the one that is, you know, he's not really in the straight and narrow, but in that group,
he is. In this group, he is. And
he's the cop in the intelligence.
He's incredibly straight for this group in the world they're working in. He's incredibly straight-laced. He's very black and white. He is above the fray.
And by being that, he is the most vulnerable. Because all the other ones would have found ways around it, and he didn't. He got caught up in the headlights, and this is so foreign to what he knows and what his experience is. She really took advantage. She was the bully. She was the cyber bully. She was that kid bullying the other kid.
That's a great way to put it. That's fantastic. Yes.
Yeah, and that was despicable. But I didn't turn on Kate in that moment. I turned on Kate when she faked Liz's death, not because I felt, oh, how does she dare take it away from Red? Simply because she doesn't know what she doesn't know. She assumes she knows everything. And she was, I mean, that is, if you really think about it, think about somebody taking you away, offering you in a moment where you're drugged to the hills, scared, giving birth, while people have been shouting at you that you have no idea what they are. In that moment, somebody offers you, and look at the way she phrased it. I saw my opportunity. That wasn't like, oh, I'm going to help her because she's desperate to go. No. She put the idea there in a moment where she was the weakest, doing exactly what she did to Wrestler. And then goes, you know, imagine your parent thinking that you're dead and you're not. And it's your nanny who took you. I'm sorry, that is exactly the same thing, because I would have respected that if she had said to Liz, listen, I'm going to tell you exactly who Raymond Reddington is. I'm going to tell you all about your mother, and you're going to make an informed decision of what it is, according to everything that I know that you want to do. Yet nobody does this. They make decisions for her. They push her in directions. She manipulated Liz as much as Red has manipulated Liz.
To a degree, I agree with you on that. To a degree. I also look at when was she going to tell her all of that? While she was sitting there and talking to her and pretending to talk up Red because she said, Raymond, let me talk to her. Mm-hmm. She had a very select amount of time to give her this option to let her run. She was working on a time frame. Kate's heart was in the right place. I personally did not blame her for that. I didn't blame the Keens for the decision they made. Yes, it blew up in their face. Honestly, and I know I'm probably going to get some flack for this, and that's okay. I understand some people think that Raymond Reddington is infallible. I blame Red for being incapable of trusting Elizabeth. That is who I blame. He needs to trust her. He needs to break down and find one human being in this entire world of his that he trusts fully, and it needs to be Liz. Otherwise, he needs to stop screwing around with her.
Well, I see. When I try not to go into crazy theories, but
you do?
Is
really?
I do. I try to.
You call your theories crazy. I feel like that's not true.
They're crazy. They're crazier, and then the craziest. And the reason is because when I look at things from my theory, everything that Red is doing makes perfect sense.
Well, don't get me wrong, and you gotta understand, when I make statements like that, I'm coming at it from Liz's point of view. And that's because I'm a character analysis. That's what I tend to do, is I tend to come at things from certain characters' point of views. I tend to look at things from the Keen's point of view. Tom first, Liz second. That's just how I come at things. I understand what Red has done. I don't negate that he thinks he has done 100% right by her. That he is doing the best in his realm of understanding. He is doing the best he can with what he's got.
But that wasn't what I was saying.
No, sorry.
Yeah, no. I was saying that we tend to think, if you look at what we know, canon shown that we can agree whatever Red Speak is said in, that there is a paternal relationship, that he's protecting the daughter of Katerina. Katerina may be dead or may not be dead. It's kind of getting iffy. But if you look at it that Katerina is alive, and should my crazy thing is that it is Carla, protecting Liz from that knowledge protects not just Liz but Carla and Jennifer. So there is more at play than Liz. And Liz is a wild card because Liz is the one that doesn't know. But Liz is also the one that was seen. She's the one hunted. She's the one associated with Katerina. So until we know why is Red doing what he's doing and what else is he trying to protect, because to me it feels like a man juggling. He's trying to keep everybody safe, and he's forced to do these things. Why doesn't he tell Liz? That's the question, is why.
See, I have always, and I don't negate the fact that he's potentially protecting Katerina. I have always gotten the impression from Red that he is terrified of losing her permanently, and that he is afraid that if he were to come out with everything, she'd leave. Mm-hmm. And he is essentially, and I don't want to say this I'm not saying this in a negative way, like trying to paint him badly, that he's protecting himself. But human beings protect themselves. I mean, it's how you survive.
He's scared.
He's terrified, and that's a human reaction. That's not a bad thing, to be afraid to lose the daughter that you missed her entire life of. He wants, and that's going back to what I said like 45 minutes ago, where I said that I feel like he's a man balanced between two worlds of protecting her and finding his way home. That's where I see that, is that he's trying to do both right now, and it's killing him. It's destroying everything, and it's bringing everything crashing down around him, shoving him under the water and drowning him in it. He can't have both. He's gonna have to choose to trust Liz if he wants to keep her.
I think that it's not even going to be that. I think that Liz is going to come to him.
She's come to him many times.
No. She's going to be the one that is going to have to go to him and say, I know who you are, Dad.
Maybe.
And
Maybe.
I...
But even if it comes to that, he's still going to have to say yes. He's still going to have to make that choice to say yes.
It's... Once Liz knows, there is no way that he cannot. Because once Liz knows, she'll be able to ask the right question.
Maybe.
She hasn't asked the right question.
Maybe.
She has asked, are you my father? She never asked, am I your daughter?
And that's possibly it. Honestly, as long as those two are on the right trail by the end of the show, I'll be okay. I need him to trust her. I think she needs him to trust her. I keep going back to season 2 when she asked Tom about the passports and he lied straight to her face, just blatantly lied to her face.
Well, didn't he say, oh yeah,
and she kissed him and she said, that's goodbye. If you can't be honest about that, that's goodbye. You can't pick and choose. And she walks away.
And he even tell her, I can't tell you about that.
Yep.
Not about that.
Yeah, and she goes, that's not how the truth works. You can't pick and choose. And she walks. And that's one of the things I love most about Liz, is that she draws the moral lines in the sand and she doesn't give on them. She says, this is my ultimatum. And in most characters, I don't think I would like that. I'm not a huge ultimatum fan because there are always so many points of view. But with Liz, I like it because she has so many extremes in her life that if she were to just give on anything, she would get tugged around more than she already is. She has to have those moral ultimatums of, you have to be honest with me. That is the one thing in her life that she's got to stand firm on. And she does. She did with Tom. He didn't have a snowball's chance in hell until he was 100% honest with her with no promise of anything in return. And then she started to trust him a little bit more. And it formed. And I don't think it's going to work out with Red. And I felt this way for a very long time just watching their characters. I don't think until he makes that same step, I don't think she's going to be able to be okay with it.
Well, I think that in a way, Red had painted himself into a corner.
Mm-hmm.
He has basically, he promised the man who raised Liz, a man whom he loved, that he was always going to be her father. He took the memories of her, the traumatic memories of killing her father, and in doing so, she has to feel a disconnect and also erased everything that was in her life up until then. And when she recovers it, she's going to always be doubting, and there is always going to be a disconnect in her. From the moment that little girl shot her father, her life was never going to be the same. She was never going to have a normal life because either she remembers it or she doesn't. How do you live with that? Even if the guy was not really her father. The fact that she took a gun and shot him, and then 26 years later, she shoots the Attorney General. Sure, he deserved it. He was a pretty bad person. And she would have shot Red, and she pointed a gun at Red, and you're talking about somebody who is, by definition, has severe issues. And I think until those issues are addressed, there would be no way in hell that Red will ever give her that truth. Because I think that Red, deep inside, thinks that is, that the way he keeps saying, you're going to have that, you're going to have the picket fence and the quiet life. He knows that's not possible. He knows that Katerina's enemies are circling. So when are they going to go away? When Katerina comes back? So why is he telling her that she's going to have that life? He knows that's not true. He knows she's going to have goons in her life for her entire life. And it's to me, there is something more that we are not seeing that explains the way he is, that
And
control.
and I do agree with that. I do agree that there's a very good possibility that there's a piece of the puzzle that's going to change my viewpoint. And that's how I watch The Blacklist, is that I'm always I try to watch it with an open mind in which I
Mm-hmm.
will change, but I do have my opinions in the moment. And right now, the one with Red remains in a very irked point in which I'm just begging him to be honest with her. And when I find out why he hasn't been, that may all alter. It's kind of like redemption. I had a lot of very stern, very solid headcanons going into redemption. But as soon as canon offered me pieces, I had to alter some of those. I either was going to continue to be miserable and bitter the fact that they didn't live up to what I'd come up with in my own head, or I was going to alter them. And guess what? They created this world. They get say so.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting that there is only one person who had actually told Liz everything, besides the task force, because they are, they're coworkers, and that's a whole different relationship. Even Cooper, whom she considers like a father figure. I have a feeling that Cooper also knows things that he hasn't told her.
Oh, most definitely.
And so you have Kate that definitely knows things and is talking to Red out of surrendering himself because he wants to keep her innocence, but it's an artificial innocence. And
It's a good way of putting it, an artificial innocence. I like that.
and
That's true.
and and Red is doing the same thing. Is Red is creating an innocence by erasing those memories. That she could have gone to therapy for that, but he chose to protect her by erasing the memories. Yes, I understand that the identity of the father, and I keep believing that there is a third man. I'm not sure that he would be the real father or not. I do think that there is a third man that is going to appear, just based on how many identities Katerina had.
Maybe, but
You got a whole
mm,
fourth season,
I
another
know,
fourth season to another
I
season to
know,
come.
I know. And
It, it's
I will hat tip you if that is accurate. I'm hesitant on that one.
hmm, yeah, we'll see,
Yeah, and
and
that's oh
especially if we turn out
speaking of hat tips, I feel like we need a hat tip Devil's Advocate over on Tumblr
yes, we
for
do. She
calling it
called
like
it.
I know I talked to her after she watched the episode. She's overseas and so she gets it a little bit later. But she was like, no, I didn't call it completely because I thought Liz would be in on it. I was like, you still called it pretty damn close. So, hat tip to Devil's Advocate over on Tumblr for calling it on Red setting up the whole kidnapping. Bravo.
Hmm. That was masterful, and you know what? It's funny because if you look at it in retrospect, why was that Hans story there? Because that's what's happening. And I always find that whenever you go looking in the blacklist, I always say the most important thing that the show is giving you in terms of canon is it's giving you a key to read the characters and to read the story.
Mm-hmm.
Good storytelling is a whole universe contained with his own rules, with his own language. And I think that whenever they give you a key to read the language, they're giving you a huge clue.
Yep.
And in this case, they told us to look at the stories that we're being given to the parallels of the story that we are not being told.
Yep.
So all
So,
this all these parallels is stories that we're having.
so I think that about wraps this up. Is there anything else you want to add?
Nope, nope. It was I think it was a great episode.
Oh, yeah, like when I watched it, I like as I was watching it, I was like, "This is a good episode." I didn't feel like it was a filler episode, but also, and I think part of that is going into it with my own expectation of I knew it was the first episode back that Tom might appear, and so like the fact that he didn't made me sad, but you know, hey, we were taught patience in season 1 and 2,
Yeah.
and so I rewatched it. I've rewatched it a couple, 3 times now, and it was an excellent episode. I think there was a lot to it. I think there was a lot that's going to build up to, and I wasn't aware. Apparently, next week is a double episode.
Yes, it is. The last episode is.
Which kind of hurts my heart. I thought I had 2 more weeks of the Blacklist. I only have 1 more week, and then the summer
but the next
of doom.
episode is 2 hours.
Hate the summer. Hate the summer. And I'm not vacationing until December this year, so it's like there's nothing to look forward to in the summer except evil Texas heat.
Oh, there's a lot of lovely rewatches.
Yeah, but evil Texas heat.
That's what AC
But
is
then
for.
I'm gonna go see Tessa in December. So, hey, who knows? Maybe we'll record that weekend's podcast actually sitting there together.
Yeah, that would be so much fun.
I'll bring my microphone with me.
Oh, we can use the same.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Sitting at the bar in my hotel room. Manhattan.
That would be fun. Yeah, it's I actually liked it. In a first view, it's one of those episodes that you need to watch 2 times because at first you're so shocked by what's happening that you don't realize a lot of the things that are actually happening.
So the only thing I have in my notes that we haven't gone over yet that I want to make a comment on because her phrasing. And as angry as I'm still angry, put out with, like, Kate's whole spiel of putting the task force under the bus is frustrated me. So it was Blacklister 214 on Tumblr today that said, Red and Kate, separate criminal corners. You're both in timeout or something like that. And I was like, yes. So I'm just mad at both of them right now. But there was this great line about the fact that Red holds Liz emotionally hostage. And I agreed with that. And as we've just discussed, there is a good possibility that there is something out there, the reason he does what he does. But no, the old emotional baggage thing, from anybody on the outside, and granted, Red may have a very good possibility of why he's doing this, but from anybody from the outside, he is holding her emotionally hostage, because he won't give her the full story, and yet he gives her just enough that she can't and won't leave. Because he knows she wants answers. She knows those answers are important to her. Ooh, and he gives her just enough to know. Everybody in the show?
Especially Howard.
Yeah. I'm not going to argue with you that Howard and Red are very similar. In fact, the fact that I finally put that together a while back, right after the finale for Redemption, is what actually brought me back around to Howard might actually care for Tom, was because I finally started looking at him through the lens of Red versus the lens of Bud, and I was more okay with Howard. So thank you, Raymond Reddington.
I think that there is a and that's the last that I want to say about the episode is that there is a tendency to look at the reactions of Red as, oh my God, how he could have done this. But the answer to the blacklist, I think that they're not in a common world. If their choices is let's get skilled or let's get used is better. Why on earth would he take her to Wujing, to a place that he has no control, to do something that she's not qualified to do, that can get her killed? Why on earth would he not say anything about the stew maker? Like, do not get involved with here. Any parent that would imagine their child getting in contact with a stew maker would just tell them running in the opposite direction.
It goes back to what Howard said in the pilot of Redemption, where he said, all of your training has prepared you for this. Everything Red has done, I still feel like there is a big war coming. That, like, the last 3 episodes of the Blacklist will be this massive war. Everything's going to come to head, and there's going to be this massive big bad that we're going to face. And that's the thing, is it's not a procedural show because we're working towards something like that, I think. I mean, I think that's the difference in the people that look at this as a spy show and the people that look at it as a procedural show. A procedural show goes on indefinitely. A spy show is looking towards something
It has a
specifically.
plot in it. The plot
Yeah,
has a
we're looking
beginning,
at
a
a plot.
middle, and an end.
Yes, exactly. And this one varies. It's incredibly character driven, don't get me wrong, because if it weren't character driven, I wouldn't have any interest in it. I love character driven stuff. But
The plot matters in a spy show.
it matters.
There's no
Yeah,
way
you can't
around.
have no plot. I mean,
It goes with the territory. That's like imagining that you're going to do a soap opera with a romantic interest. It just doesn't go.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. It has nothing to fall on. And plot and spies and mysteries are going together. It's what drifts them. There is a secret. There is nothing is as it seems.
Exactly. So yeah. Anyway, it's very interesting. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. But and what Red's end game will eventually shift. I'm sure how I feel about all of it.
I have a feeling that this whole thing with Kate is not going to be resolved in this episode, in the last two episodes. I'm making that prediction. I think that this season is going to end up with Kate going in a different direction. And I tell you, I love my idea. A phone call and then a voice that says, "I told you not to love her."
I am all over that. All over that. I love that idea.
Because I think that there is, however weird that was, and we can make a lot of explanations, there is something about that line that stuck to me. That's the weirdest thing to say to a nanny. Yeah, it's bizarre. It's really strange.
So I guess that's about it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah? You don't have anything else to add?
Nope. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, but I imagine that our podcast for next week might be massive. We might have to divide it.
Oh my gosh. And hey, we'll be going into the summer, so it'll be okay. That makes me so sad. Summer hiatus makes me so sad. Hurts my heart. So we hope you guys have a great weekend and a great week. We will see you next time. If you would like
for the last time on season 4.
Yes, but we will be back in season 5, we promise. Unless weird things happen, but we plan to be back for season 5.
And we'll probably do a recap of season 4 during the summer.
Yeah, we do plan to pop up every once in a while. If you follow us on iTunes, make sure to follow us. If any of our, we're on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. You can subscribe on any of those to make sure you get alerts when we update, and I would definitely suggest going into the summer that you do that. And also follow us on
Twitter and Facebook and Tumblr. And that way you'll be informed when we do any pop-ups about maybe whatever that, if the hiatus get to us.
Yeah, and I keep trying to drag the roomie into it because she's pretty much a casual viewer. I'd love to do a casual viewer sort of conversation.
You know what we should do for one of those? We should see if we can get Blacklister, because that would be a fun one.
It would be great. The 3 of us would be fantastic. We should do that.
Because I'm a theorist, you're a shipper, and she's a shipper theorist.
Yeah.
So it would be a real fun one.
I agree. We should definitely do that. That'd be amazing to be on the air.
Yeah, we'll try to see if we can make it work.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
And with that, hope to see you next week.
All right, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.